Show. My name is Heidi and we're here to explore metaphysical and holistic concepts. And I wanted to go over what's happening this week astrologically before we get started with our beautiful guest for this evening. And as you know, we just came out of the big Taurus alignment, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster for quite a few people, and it's not over. May 10th is actually, to me, as an astrologer, the biggest day of the month, the 10th, 11th, 12th. It's when more planets are in aspect to each other, so they're having a conversation, they're talking about how we're doing down here and what we need to learn and what the lessons shall be. And we have Saturn aspecting Uranus in a square still, and that will go out of aspect the same day that Saturn and Jupiter get together exactly, which is May 28th. And we also have the Sun conjuncting, that means they're in the same place at the sky at the same time, Sun conjuncting Saturn. So this is a bit of a slowness. It's a bit of a time to reap the wisdom of what we've been encountering for the last few weeks. And one of the ways to deal with this, and it needs to be dealt with, is taking responsibility for what we've created in our lives. Taurus being the sign of creation and abundance and havingness on the earth. And this also includes our experiences. So it's a time when the planets, the cosmos, are asking us to really pay attention to what we've created, both for good and for ill. And taking responsibility for that is key. It may be very tempting to say, it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. But if it's in your life, you have to take some responsibility. There's some part you're playing energetically or otherwise. And it's really necessary. It'll make it much smoother if you can stand up and say, okay, I've been involved in this too, and what are we going to do about it from here? It's a time when we're being asked to be very mature, and it's not always an easy time, but again, we're up for the task. So enjoy the beautiful flowers in bloom. It is a time of abundance right now. It's a time of enjoying the beauty of nature and really being thankful and grateful for the planet. And we have Saloma Debra Siep here today. She's also known as Mountain Mother. You may have seen her herbs around town. And I really appreciate you being here, Debra.
Thanks, Heidi.
And I don't even know where to begin, really. We talked about so many different things, and I think where I'd like to start is talking about Venus. Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and so she's really in everybody's life right now. And I'm wondering what insights you have about Venus.
Venus really is in everybody's lives right now. But I always feel like all of us on Earth are particularly close to Venus as a planet and as a goddess or a god, however we'd like to view that. And I know we talked a little bit about how I like to use herbs in relationship with the planets and where the planets are at and as tonics. So since we're in the sign of Taurus and we're all going through a lot of Taurian things right now, it's a really good time to use Venus tonics. One of my favorite Venus herbs is alfalfa.
Oh, that's a Venus herb.
That's a Venus herb. The Latin on that's Medicago sativa.
Okay.
And what we find in a lot of Venusian herbs is a real high level of chlorophyll.
Oh, okay.
And so Venus' sacred color is green. And when you see that in the herbs, the real high level of chlorophyll, that just makes it kind of obvious. So spirulina is also sacred to Venus. And the herbs that are sacred to Venus help us stabilize in our emotions. And we also see them working most directly on our digestive systems, more so than maybe something else that you would think like the heart or the reproductive systems. Actually, most Venusian herbs work primarily on the digestion.
which is really key to how the rest of our systems work, how we incorporate, assimilate stuff.
Yeah, very, very key to incorporating our emotions in our life. And if we hold on to emotions, it usually has something to do with our digestive system. So if we use those tonics, it helps us to move with peace through our emotions.
And I want to ask you about that. It's sort of a chicken and egg question. What comes first? Does our digestion start to be off, or do our emotions start to be off?
My belief is that all dis-ease comes from an emotional origin. The only thing further back than an emotional origin would be the thought of discord itself.
Okay.
And the thought perhaps would create the emotion and consequently the physical consequences, but in my philosophy, there's always an emotional root of illness.
And can herbs take care of most emotional upsets, do you think?
I think that herbs are best used as tonics, and the best way to use herbs in our lives is on a day-to-day basis as a nutritional support.
Okay.
And in that way we can really keep a balance on our emotions. And if we need to go further with that, in what most medical professionals call pathology, if we see a real long-term imbalance, then there are other methods that go deeper. And I like to use herbs during those times as support also.
Now there are some herbs though that, I should back up. A tonic means you can use it every day, that it won't harm you at all. But there are other herbs that you wouldn't want to use as a tonic, right?
There are other herbs that you wouldn't want to use as tonics.
Okay.
And what you find in herbalism is really an art.
Yeah.
And so you find a lot of diversity in the way people use herbs and how they use them and what they use them for and how much they use. And I think that's really one of its greatest beauties. Personally, most of those herbs that I'm sure you're thinking of and perhaps our audience is thinking of right now that we wouldn't consider tonics, I prefer not to use in medicine at all.
Oh, you don't?
Yes.
So I was thinking maybe like the cohoshes and...
Yeah, where we're looking at soliciting a very strong hormonal reaction in the body or a strong antimicrobial action in the body. Those types of herbs I actually prefer not to use medicinally, at least as in those type of illustrations. I really view herbs as tonics entirely, and I choose to view pathology and disease with a much more holistic concept and just view herbs as food.
So if somebody came to you with a chronic sore throat, you'd have to look at a lot of different things you wouldn't just treat the sore throat, is my point.
No, I wouldn't just treat the sore throat. If they didn't have the time, if they didn't want to take the time themselves to get to the root of the problem, then yes, there's something on the shelf. There's a cough syrup on the shelf that's herbal. That's a better choice than, some other things that, might be available. But I would prefer to get to the bottom of it and take care of it once and for all. And what I would do is sit down and listen to the client and understand how they feel. That would be my primary concern. And I would look for relationships to those feelings. For instance, when the sore throat started. And I think some questions would come to my mind, like, is there something you'd like to say that you don't feel like you can say, with the example of a sore throat? And then I would, if we were looking at erasing that permanently, I would prefer to use essential oils or homeopathic remedies or flower essences.
Okay, and like the essences and even the homeopathy, those again are herbs in different forms, right?
They are herbs in different forms. And how we can view that is to use herbs as a tonic. For instance, my smoking blend or a tea or a tincture, or just eating them out of the yard every day, which is usually what I do.
Okay.
That's the most crude way to use herbs. Flower essences are a simple way to become finer in our use of herbs, and it's something that everyone can do. It uses only the flowers and the power of the sun.
Okay.
And is very dilute, contains no physical substance whatsoever. And so the use of those herbs becomes much finer. Now, homeopathics does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It takes the use of the substance to a much finer and consequently deeper level. And there's literally no physical substance of the plant in the remedy itself. And there are a lot of scientific rubrics behind the making of those remedies, so it's more complex than a flower essence.
But it basically takes the vibration of the plant?
That's a good way to illustrate it. It's a good word to use to illustrate what happens.
Okay.
It's based on homeopathy, and I think where most flower essence philosophy comes from is based on the philosophy that like cures like.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so we take that vibration much higher, so that if you want to view it in a particle size, we go from an herb particle down to little tiny particles that are carrying the same message that that herb carries, but it can go to the very soul of ourselves. And that's how we deal with the root of the problem. The particle size is so tiny that it can get to our soul and remind our soul what's out of balance. And then the soul can take care of the body on its own.
Okay, and you're saying the soul as opposed to the body. Now, if we're in communication with our soul, shouldn't we be able to talk to it already and have it do stuff without the intervention of the flower?
Well, we should. And that's something we can say about all disease also, in that all disease has an emotional root. One of the roots of most of those emotional imbalances is just the belief or a lack of knowledge of how to communicate with one's own soul or one's higher self or one's heart, however we'd like to say that. But yes, inherent within each of us, I believe, we have every power necessary to heal ourselves. And so, if you and I were stranded on a desert island somewhere and we had no substances at all, or if we were in a dark room with nothing at all, yes, we could heal anything we wanted to, just using our own power.
And do you work with that at all, teaching people how to do that?
I have taught classes in various ways on different methods of communicating with the soul. A lot of that work I really view as staying silent. I feel like that goes on all the time when healings occur, whether or not it's spoken of. I would say the subject that I teach the most, that most directly deals with this, is yoga.
Okay. And I've taken some yoga. You've done it most of your life, and now you're a teacher of it. It seems to me, when I do yoga poses, that different parts of my body have totally different messages for me. And that's been really interesting for me, to get that communication. You probably have something even deeper to say about that. That's just been my observation.
Excuse me. I think that's a very accurate observation that you've made, that when you push the limits of your body, you find that you recorded or captured messages in certain parts of your body that didn't quite make it to your brain or to your soul. And so when we push the outer limits of what we view as our physical expansion, then we can get in touch with those messages. That's exactly what the philosophy of yoga says, and all the great sages say. And you can refine the language, but you've said it pretty well. I would say yoga means union. And so when we say yoga, we say union, and what that means is union of the self. So we're uniting the physical body with the soul and with the mind and the heart. And one of the prayers that yogis often say is, where there is yoga, there is bliss and prosperity with freedom. Because in union, all of those bodies come together and create a blossoming.
And I just realized this, and this again is my personal opinion, but all the yoga poses are really beautiful, aren't they?
They are quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's quite a bit behind the naming of the postures also. Sanskrit is also a vibrational language. So the names of the postures are very carefully chosen. For instance, camel, ustrasana is the word in Sanskrit, is a back bend. And people will always wonder, why did we name this camel? Because it's a back bend,
Right.
What does this back bend have to do with camels? Well, the camel's a very sacred symbol, primarily because it's able to sustain itself when there's the illusion of no sustenance.
Right.
And the backbends can provide that type of space for us. But the way we approach the pose in yoga is where the name comes from, and it has to do with the way the camel sits and stands on its very long legs. And if you can see the pose in your mind, and I'm sure that in the audience, anyone that practices yoga, if you can just remember the next time that you do camel to think about, if you can picture, the way a camel stands up, because it's on very tall legs, and there's a psychology in that we don't get enough of. So it's a very beneficial posture when we feel like we need extra support.
That's a good idea. It also made me think of, I keep connecting this back to the Taurian idea. For instance, the taking space in your lungs when you do the breathing for yoga, and just taking space for yourself in general. It seems to me that it sort of also takes away from this need to bring more stuff into our lives, because then, it's sort of an artificial way of saying, see, I'm here, instead of doing it with our body and our breath and saying, I'm here, and taking the space that we really do need. Even if you live in a house with 6 people, there's a way to take your own space, including your auric field and all the rest. Anyway, you just brought up an interesting concept for me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. In fact, one of the things I've been doing and really conscious of during this lineup is I've been actually getting rid of a lot of things.
Have you?
Yeah. I've been getting rid of all kinds of clothes, dishes, artwork, furniture. This just feels like a real good spring cleaning time. And I've been thinking about Hathor a lot also, the goddess Hathor.
Okay.
She's very Taurian. She's an Egyptian goddess. And people often get Hathor and Isis confused because they both wear the horns of the cow in the solar disk as their crown in iconography. And Taurus is a goddess of love and celebration and abundance. And the rattle's very sacred to Hathor. And she was much loved by the Egyptian people. In fact, there's a myth that our galaxy was created from Hathor's milk spraying across the sky. So they have these beautiful murals all over Egypt of this big cow with the solar disk on her head and various pharaohs and other gods and goddesses milking her, and then the milk spraying out over the dark night sky and creating the Milky Way. And that's actually where we get the name for our galaxy, the Milky Way.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So,
from Hathor.
Yes, from Hathor.
And how does that vary from Isis?
Well, it's a mystery, really. It's a very complex mystery that just requires a lot of contemplation to understand. And I believe it's intentional. I don't really believe there's a lack of knowledge. Even Egyptologists will go back and forth and they'll say, and this is the temple of Hathor. And then they'll say, and this is the temple of Isis. And here we see this statue of Isis. And someone will ask, well, I thought this was a statue of Hathor. Didn't you just say we were in the temple of Hathor? And they're so similar that even very well-schooled Egyptologists will get confused sometimes. And there's a very mystical symbology in that that just requires a lot of contemplation. They're both mother goddesses. They both have a lot to do with nourishment and celebration.
And now, from what I've heard, Isis also holds the Akashic records. Is that true?
Isis does hold the records.
Okay.
Isis mysteries are very much involved with the dropping of the veil the particular veil that keeps us all from knowing everything. And through approaching her and Hathor, we can achieve that knowledge.
Put this back here while I ask you another question. So how do we make friends with Isis?
I feel like Isis responds very easily to people's requests for response, much the same way Krishna says, if anyone offers me a leaf or a flower with love, I will accept it. Isis is the same way. I know more people that have had personal experiences with Isis than perhaps any other god or goddess. She's very responsive because she has so much to do with joy and love and celebration. So what you could do is just, if you can find a picture of Isis and put it somewhere nice and offer her something nice, your food, your meals, some flowers, and just ask for what you'd like to know. just ask for what you need to know. And she often comes in poetry. She'll start singing, and it's very blue. She's a very blue goddess. So you'll often see blue or feel blue, or feel like wearing blue.
Huh. Even though she's in chlorophyll, which is green.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking Venus to Isis.
Yes.
The connection.
Yes.
What are the oldest references to Isis that you know of?
Now that again is a question that's highly disputed, even among scholars. And it just depends on what school of thought you talk to. Isis, the cult of Isis, is one of the oldest religious cults known to man. And the temple of Isis at Aswan is one of the oldest temple structures on the planet.
Where's Aswan?
Aswan is on the southern border of Egypt. It's in Nubia.
Okay.
And it's in the cataracts of the Nile, in one of the areas where the Nile separates into many different fingers of a river.
Oh, okay.
And the temple is actually on an island in the middle of the Nile, and it's a spot where temples have been built to Isis for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The worship, as it continued until actually 500 AD, is recorded to be at least 7,000 years old. In my opinion, it's much older.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, just because something's recorded doesn't mean it's not a lot older than that. And the island thing immediately brought up the Isle of Avalon for me, and maybe that's a variation on this myth. Maybe that's how it got transmitted to the UK.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I want to get back to all of this, and we're going to, in just a few minutes, we have a wonderful musician on. Venus rules music, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
Okay. So, and we have an appropriate name for this musician. His name is Rich Angell, and he'll be playing and singing for us, and I hope you all enjoy it, and we're going to get back to Debra in a few minutes. Thank you very much for being here tonight. The orange and red likes to sing.
星降る夜は部屋の明かり消して静かに静かに星のささやき聞こうよラジオ消してレコードを止めて耳を澄ましてごらんほら歌っているでしょなのに君は知らぬふりして眠っているから一人ぼっちのパーティーララララ君の夢はどうですか耳を澄ましてごらんほら歌っているでしょ雨降る夜はそっと窓を開けて手を差し伸べて雨のささやき聞こうよ誰かが泣いている小さな声で悲しい恋のお話をしているでしょうなのに君は知らぬふりして眠っているから一人ぼっちのパーティーラララ君の夢はどうですか悲しい恋のお話をしているで know, the nice thing about singing Japanese songs in America is when I forget the words, nobody notices. And with that, I'd like to move on to another folk song. This one is much more popular. It's by Issei Shozo, and everybody it's like our Blowing in the Wind or something like that. It's called Nagoriyuki, which basically means falling snow. And it is another melancholic song, this time about separation, parting at the train station, and it's hard to translate. A lot of times I understand exactly what I'm singing, but I couldn't tell you in English what I'm singing. But anyway, this song is called Nagoriyuki. 汽車を待つ君の横で僕は時計を気にしてる季節外れの雪が降ってる東京で見る雪はこれが最後ねと寂しそうに君がつぶやく名残雪も降る時を知りふざけすぎた季節の後で今春が来て君は綺麗になった去年よりずっと綺麗になった動き始めた汽車の窓に顔をつけて君が何か言おうとしている君の唇がさよならと動くことは怖くて下を向いてた時が行けば幼い君も大人になると気づかないまま今春が来て君は綺麗になった去年よりずっと綺麗になった君が去ったホームに残り落ちては溶ける雪を見ていた今春が来て君は綺麗になった去年よりずっと綺麗になった去年よりずっと綺麗になった去年よりずっと綺麗になった
Thanks a lot, Rich. That was wonderful. And Rich will be back with us later. And we also have another special guest, Leandra Murray, who will be talking to us about the energies for the month. And that will be probably in about 25 minutes or so. So please stay tuned for her. That's very high energy. And this reminds me, we will be taking live calls in a little bit. We're hearing the phone ring right now. We will be taking live calls and probably starting that in about 10 or 15 minutes. And the phone number for MCAT to get through to us is 542-MCAT or 542-6228 if you have any questions for Debra. And I want to give out some phone numbers here for Rich Angell, 721-5434. For Leandra Murray, who will be seeing soon, 726-4412. For Debra, 880-9642. And again for MCAT, 542-6228. I'll be giving out these phone numbers again at the end of the hour. If you'd like to get a hold of anybody for the Heidi Show or have any questions for us or ideas, the number for us is 829-9612. And I can't forget, I forgot last week, Rainbow's End is providing my clothes these days, so I just wanted to thank them and show you the outfit. And they're at West Main Street in Missoula. Thank you very much, Rainbow's End. And I had a couple questions for Debra. I wanted to ask you about the balancing of male and female energies on the planet. It's really key right now during the Taurian days. And I think most people would agree that the feminine has been suppressed for a long, long time. And we're having, this is actually a huge opportunity when you think of it. If we could possibly balance these energies that have been out of balance for thousands of years, it's just a huge window, huge opening available. And I was wondering if you could talk to me about that.
I feel like the best way for both men and women to approach this right now is actually to just really come from a place of forgiveness. And I would agree with you that that is our greatest responsibility to the planet at this point, as well as to ourselves for our own development. And that we also have within this work the greatest opportunity. So I think the most appropriate thing to do for both men and women is to call upon the law of forgiveness, which just comes straight from the heart. And we've seen so much change in the last 30 years that the way my beliefs actually at this point are a little controversial. And really what I enjoy seeing is both men and women serving one another. And perhaps it's among the strongest, whether they're men or women, where we see that. And it's one of those things that we're taught as children and don't really understand until we become mature adults, that in humility and in service is the master. So I, in this healing, just really on a day-to-day basis, and tonight on the show, would like to take the opportunity to ask women and men to just come from a place of forgiveness and see if they can't find just little ways every day to serve the women in their lives and serve the men in their lives. I just feel like that's what men and women need from one another the most. And I think that's where we find common ground. And I know that's what I want in my own life, is just to be surrounded by people that I can look at them and say, wow, you're like a God to me. I want to serve you because all I can see in you is God. And I find that we're kind of done with the feminist movement. We've legally secured rights as women. And it's time now for us to move back into a greater power, which is the power of love. And forgiveness is a major aspect of that. So I'd like to see men and women both viewing one another in that way and looking at one another and saying, how can I serve you? How can I make your day better? Can I wash your feet? Can I make you a snack? Can I do something nice for you? Just the little things. I think that's the fastest way we'll see that balance.
And so this is sort of circumventing and skipping the whole guilt trip. How does Venus deal with guilt? Does she even acknowledge it?
No, Venus it kind of is puzzled by the concept of guilt. There just really isn't room for it when your heart is full of love. Likewise with shame or anger. There's just, those things are so easily overcome. It's like we have this concept that weeds are very powerful, and the weeds will choke out our beautiful flowers, but it's just really an illusion and likened to love, that there's nothing stronger than love. And what we view as a threat to love really stands no power against love. And Venus would chuckle if we ever tried to approach her with the subject of guilt or shame.
Because one of my big steps and what I share with people in astrology readings is that self-forgiveness is really key on the healing process. That you can't work with people on an even footing if you're carrying around all this guilt and stuff. But you're just saying go ahead and act, and the actions might help take care of some of the guilt on their, just through the action.
I think it happens naturally wherever you can start. What a person will see is that energy just begins to build, and what you put out into the world comes back to you. And you really can't love other people until you love yourself. So if you must go into an action of loving another first, and that leads you to self-love, then that's perhaps the quickest path.
Huh, okay. And I wanted to mention, if anybody hasn't noticed, that you changed into a beautiful gown, and it's very, very festive. I love the gold shining and all the colors. And I wanted to talk about the power of adornment. You're talking about the feminist stage, and you know, it probably being very necessary to move us into a more even footing on a governmental level. But some of our great power has sort of gone by the wayside for a time, including the power of adornment and just having fun being women. Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I can talk about that and bring it even out of sexual terms.
Okay.
Adornment and beauty are very important to me. I view everything in the world artistically, and I really feel like that's a major part of every goddess. And I think as Americans, one aspect of God that we need to embrace is God's abundance and God's opulence, of which adornment and beauty are an aspect of that. And I think that's where a lot of Americans' guilt comes from. And I hear people a lot of times, they talk to me and they want to know why it's so bad here, why everything's so bad in America, and how yucky we've been to the rest of the world. And I really disagree. I love America so much, and I really, really would like to see our people embrace America's abundance as an aspect of our good works, because abundance is an aspect of God, and beauty is an aspect of the goddess. So it's very powerful, and I feel like when we can move back into a place of forgiveness, that there is room in the workplace for women to be beautiful, and I feel like that's appropriate. I feel like it's very appropriate.
Since you talked about your artwork, I think this is an appropriate time to let the audience see some of the artwork that Dedra's created. Now, have you created all three of these paintings? There are two from nature and one, would you call that iconographic?
That is actually what we would call a talisman or a talisman.
Okay.
And it's a woodcut.
And that's the one on the bottom, if we could get a close-up on that for a moment. Okay.
So I was apprenticed to a woodcut artist and taught the art. It's an ancient art of printmaking. It was the origin of books.
Okay. So you did create this.
I did create this.
That's beautiful.
And there are more available.
Okay.
It's a print, so there's an
Okay.
edition of, this is an edition of 200. And this talisman is sacred to the goddess Ashtoreth, whose major holiday we just celebrated a few weeks ago is Easter.
Okay.
So, and this is a symbol that's used in manifesting, which is very Taurian, as you've mentioned, and has a lot to do with abundance. And you can see that in the symbol. I've added some wheat-like decoration around the talisman. And if you can just visualize, you can actually see the symbol for Taurus in the artwork.
Okay.
You can see it on the sides there on the left and right. And if you can visualize this symbol moving in your head, you can see these bars rotating in circles. And so it's a very powerful symbol for manifesting, especially in the artistic and financial realms.
Wow, that's really amazing. And now let's look up at the top ones too while we've got the camera over there. These are two from nature.
Now these are oil paintings. They're called plein air because these paintings were done, as you mentioned, in the forest where these herbs grow. The larger painting is bear grass, and the smaller one is arnica or leopard's bane.
And arnica makes a really good oil.
It does.
And do you use that herb for massage oils?
I do. In fact, I brought some with me this evening.
Uh-oh. we might ask you to be of service here soon.
Actually, it looks like it didn't get brought out, but I do
Okay.
use arnica quite a bit.
And do you what they call wildcraft?
I do wildcraft.
Okay, and can you explain that?
I can't explain wildcrafting. That's a good thing to talk about.
Okay.
It's a lot of people get confused about wildcrafting. Wildcrafting means harvesting from the wild plants or substances that naturally grow or occur for our use. So it's like just harvesting instead of cultivating and then harvesting. We let Mother Earth grow it for us and then we just go harvest it. Goes back to hunter-gatherer days. And of course we don't do it as much now that our natural areas have been encroached upon by civilization. There's just not as much to wildcraft. So when I wildcraft, I primarily wildcraft on private land. And I have very strict standards as far as the percentage of plants I take, of a plant stand or population. I generally take no more than a seventh.
Okay.
I have a long list of plants that I absolutely will not harvest until I feel like their population is stabilized. But at the same time, I'm not one to really worry about whether or not the earth can recover from our mistakes, because I view like that as very egocentric. I feel like I understand that the earth is much more powerful than any of us, and she will always recover, even if we don't have the foresight to see when that will occur. So the main thing that I wildcraft is what most people would consider weeds, and weeds that I use quite a bit in medicine, like mullein or St. John's wort. And so nobody cares if you pick St. John's wort, because most people just like to take their anger out on it. So they don't
Poor
mind
guys.
if you come pick it.
Yeah.
You know.
And a controversy I've had with some people is I don't like to pick herbs that have had cars go by them because I don't know what's coming out in the emissions. And other people say, well, it's got a lot of CO2 and that's good for the plants and all the rest. But where would you pick? Would you pick near a road?
Well, I'll tell you, I have different standards, and as a professional for products or medicine that I'm selling, that's a rule I follow, that I don't wildcraft within 20 feet of a road, and I don't wildcraft on contaminated areas. You know, anyone would consider contaminated, for instance, old railroad yards,
Right.
things like that, because of the potential for toxicity there. For my own self, if I see this huge stand of roses and I want to pick a couple rose hips for tea that night, and I'm driving down the highway, I might just jump out the car and grab a little handful of rose hips, and I don't think anything of it. And I feel like even if it is toxic, that I need to be at peace with that because I exist here with that.
That's a very highly evolved way of looking at the planet. Part of the reason I think my teacher taught me that about not going near stuff near the road was because she dealt mostly with tinctures, which increases whatever elements are in there, it increases the strength of them, and not to increase the strength of something you don't want to take into your body. Have you been an artist all of your life?
I have been. I was born an artist.
Really?
Yeah, they joke I was born with a paintbrush in my hand. I pretty much wouldn't quit. You had to drag me away forcibly from art until I was 20 years old. And I find that art is some of the deepest meditational work that one can do. And I didn't realize that until as an adult, until my adult life at times has taken me away from being primarily a creator of fine art. And I got more into traditional methods of prayer and meditation. I realized how intently all my childhood years I had been meditating, making this art.
Yeah, it's a great medium. And I did want to let the audience know that we're ready to take calls if anyone would like to call in. And we have a small audience here today, and we don't have a mic set up, so I'm going to paraphrase one of the questions I heard at the break. And the question was, could you please speak more about how to create that space in yourself to do the self-healing that you were talking about earlier?
So we can start if we feel like, when we start talking about these concepts on television and the audience is wondering, well, where is my inner child anyway? And is it really possible for me to talk to my soul? And where do I begin? The best place to begin is with a standard meditation practice. And when we really begin to make progress is if we can commit even 10 minutes every day to any type of meditation. We'll begin to easily see the development of our self-communication. For meditation instruction, I would suggest that you look in the paper, you look at flyers around town, and just go to the class that most appeals to you. You can go to a yoga class and learn meditation. You can go to meditation seminars. So there's a lot of different ways to approach that if you're wondering how to meditate. But basically, when we begin to meditate, the first thing we do is become quiet inside of ourselves. So you want to sit down in a quiet place and close your eyes and just let your mind become blank. And when I'm first teaching people to meditate, what I will illustrate that as is let your mind become blank like a movie screen. And then people can real easily see their thoughts just coming and going like pictures on film. And then you can use all kinds of ways to release those pictures until your mind becomes blank. Now, once you've mastered that, if you can do that for a few minutes a day, then you'll see that after a little while, you'll begin to be able to do that for longer and longer periods of time. The next thing to do to begin communication with the self is to just begin becoming more aware of the entire body. So you want to start doing meditations that start at the bottom of the feet and move all the way up to the top of the head. So after one is quiet, you can say, for instance, this is a good example. Pick your favorite color, and on that blank screen inside your head, favorite color is always a great place to start, because whatever your favorite color is, the color of that vibration is what you need most. So there's never any danger in this. So you can place that, just fill up your blank screen with nothing but this color, and then you can inhale and create this color on the blank screen of your mind, and as you exhale, direct it to the very bottom of your toes. And you want to just keep doing that, and inhale and create the color on the blank screen of your mind, and then just keep going to every part of your body. So then after the toes, we go to the feet, and then we go to the heels, and then the calves, and so on and so forth. And do not forget the internal organs, or the fingers, or the head. And after we begin a meditational practice like that, it doesn't take, on average, if one is steady in a practice, meaning that one practices every day, it doesn't take more than a few months to really easily begin communication with the higher self, or with the soul.
Wow, that's a really powerful tool. And just in case anybody doesn't know, we'll repeat this Thursday at 3 if you want to hear that again, or tape it for yourself, because that's a really good way of explaining it. That's a really good approach. I wanted to ask you, because something came up when you were talking about that, the judgments we have around colors. Are there bad colors?
There aren't bad colors, and I'm glad you brought this back up, Heidi, because when we started talking about Venus colors, and then you asked me why I had switched into blue, and why is Isis so blue if Venus is green, and when we start working on these inner levels, what we find is that colors are so different than what we view with the outer eye. And I know that we talked about this the other day. We were talking about your daughter's name, and I mentioned to you that the red that we consider red and we consider a primary color, which is a very powerful statement, is actually not a primary color, and it's not the primary red. So if we needed to create the entire world out of 3 colors, red would actually be much more closer to the color of your gown this evening.
Oh, okay.
So, and this color is much more primary than the red that we consider primary and teach as a primary color in school. And what we see on the inner levels is the color will often merge into the color it's next to. So green does become blue. When you have a very high concentration of green, it turns blue.
Okay.
And so on.
I'm sorry, I just know that there's somebody on the line with a call, and for anyone who has a black and white TV, my gown tonight is somewhere between fuchsia and magenta. It's a really pretty vibrant color. So we're going to take a call from somebody. So, hi, are you there?
Yes, I am. I have a question for Debra.
Okay.
Debra, how long have you been doing the aromatherapy, the essences? When did you get into that? I know you said you were an artist for all of your life. When did you go into that part of it?
The aromatherapy, I actually, God gave the aromatherapy to me by accident. And what happened was, I think this was in my second year of running my business, Mountain Mother, and a girlfriend of mine who always goes to the gem show in Arizona called me from the gem show. And she said, you've got to do this with me. There are these amazing, beautiful, antique perfume bottles this guy has here, and we have to buy them. And I need you to send me the money right now. And I didn't trust her because we have very different taste. And she had to keep calling me and keep calling me and keep calling me and telling me how special these bottles were. And so I finally sent her the money, and she came home with these boxes of amazingly beautiful 100-year-old American perfume glass. And we found caps that fit the bottles, and we thought, well, what are we going to do with these? And, this light bulb went on above my head, and I thought, well, I'll buy essential oils in bulk and repackage them and sell them. That's brilliant, and so I started researching aromatherapy, and it just really snowballed. People want to learn so much about it. It's such an amazing science. It's very evolved on a chemical level as well as an esoteric level. It's an ancient healing science. I love it to death, and I've just never quit since that point. So I guess that's been about 3 or 4 years now.
Okay. And the caller went. And I wanted to ask you about all the goodies of the earth, and I should let people in on a secret. You put some aromatherapy drops on us before the show, and I just feel like I'm in a gardenia garden. It's really a beautiful smell. But I wanted to talk just about the simple things on the planet. Somebody gave me this feather, and it also is a wonderful meditation tool. And I think when I first started getting more on my spiritual path, I bought a lot of tools, and I didn't use so many of them at first until I gathered the things I need, and then they'll come out at me one at a time. And it's just such a simple thing. I guess I want to know also, is there a mystical, esoteric meaning behind feathers?
There are several mystical meanings behind feathers, and most people will easily pick up on this. In fact, feathers are a great introduction to mysteries or, higher spiritual concepts, because most everyone has been exposed to some spiritual concept involving a feather. We can all remember seeing somewhere visions of holy people with feathers, fanning smoke for healing ceremonies. And what birds actually are on the planet for is they're different than all other animals in this way, by the way. But birds are actually here entirely as messengers for us. And so all birds carry messages from God to us.
Okay.
And so their feathers, consequently, can represent a lot of different things. They can represent the power of God. They can represent the truth. They often represent truth or justice. And when you receive feathers, it depends on the bird, and there's a whole language within birds of, what birds are, a duck, pairs of ducks, for instance. It's an ancient symbol for filial responsibility.
Oh, okay.
So if you're searching for, say for instance, if someone is searching in nature for information about their relationship, and they see a pair of ducks, then they know that their mate feels the same way about them as they do.
Wow.
Herons are another example. Herons are an ancient symbol for a peaceful home. And so if you're wondering what you need to do with yourself and you see a heron, then the best thing to do is to go home and just relax.
And I want to get back to this. We are going to take another break. We're going to have Leandra Murray speak about the energies for the month. And when I get back, we're also going to take more calls. And one of my questions is going to be, what if you have an idea of a bird in your mind? what's the symbolism of that. And if anyone wants to call and ask about a specific bird, I encourage that. It'll be 542-6228 if you'd like to call in. And here we go with Leandra. Thank you very much, Leandra.
Murray, and I'm here to talk with you about interstellar Earth report, times and trends. And this is entitled Many Minutes. There are many portals that open in the galactic oneness. The heavens open up, and energies pour through that are holy and sacred. And this is what I intend to focus upon and ask you to during these few moments that we have this month with me and the energies that I'm bringing forward. The first one is May 11th. And this is a day of mastery. A day for you to open to...
Why you start over?
Okay. Just start over now? Okay. This is Leandra Murray, and I'm here to talk to you about the Interstellar Earth Report, Timings and Trends. And we will call this May Moments. I'd like to talk to you about portals opening up in the heavens and great and sacred holy light coming through. For this is what I intend to focus upon in my Interstellar Earth Report. For the month of May, we'll call it May Moments. And Spirit has told me that 11th is a very holy day, that this is a day of mastery, a day for people to be able to open up to who they are and to begin to create what they want. Spirit has given me visions. And in the vision, the person, the human, stands. And he has a crystal ball that comes out of his hand. And the crystal ball then goes up at a 45-degree angle in front of him or her. The crystal ball then opens to a Merkaba. You might think of it, it looks like a terrarium, but it is of more slowed down light with a focus point that goes up to the heavens. They ask that you open yourself to ask what you want. They say, do not plea bargain. This is not a time of asking for something. This is a time of creating in your mastery. They show me that after this creation is done, after you ask for what you want in a way of focused intent, they say to still your mind chatter and focus on what you want. And when these things come about, they show you in a sleek convertible, and not just a small convertible, but kind of like a Jaguar, with the hair blowing out as you're roaring down the motorway, receiving what you want. It is a powerful portal day. Remember it, May 11th. The next date to remember is May 17th. May 17th is a day to look at mental emotional issues, the mental emotional bodies. They tell me that this is the most difficult one for you this month to master, but it can be done. They showed me a vision of the human in a dirty bag of water. And this is like your pod, your aura, that has all this old energies of the past, the patterns that keep going round and round and round. And they set within your boundaries. You're not releasing it. They tell me that this is a time that you as a master can ask to have it released. You ask for assistance. For indeed the angelic realms and even the ascended masters are servants to assist you to release these things, for you to come into your radiant light as a glorious being. The third date is the 25th. And this is a date of alignment and attunement, a very holy day. It is a day to open yourselves and connect yourself to this galactic portal, to the star seeds that are around you, to family and great energies. It is a day to release boundaries and to give gratitude of light and love to the galactic beings who are your star family. I believe this is an important formula that Spirit has laid out in these 3 days for this month. The first is, step into your mastery, co-create with crystal light and focused intent of the things that you desire to come forward in your life. The second is to let go of the baggage, the emotional baggage. Release it with assistance that you ask for as a master, asking to serve you, the angelic realms, the holy ones, to serve you and help you release it. And the third is to align yourself and to attune and to give gratitude to Spirit for this adventurous, miracle, magical life that we create as a group and individual energy. Many blessings to you. My telephone number is 406-726-4412 if you need help with any of these steps. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Leandra. That was really great. And I'm sorry for the technical error at the beginning there. And right now we're going straight into another set with Rich Angell. And he's going to sing us a couple more songs, and then we're going to get back to Debra and phone calls. Thank you very much.
Okay, here's a song by Jean Ferrat, very popular singer in French. He's, I guess, you can say from the 60s era, and a lot of controversial stuff. Supposedly he was accused of being a communist, and so his popularity has gone down a little bit in recent decades, but nevertheless his music is pretty popular. And here's one, I don't know how well known it is in France, but it's about bullfighting in Spain, and it's called Les Belles Étrangères, which literally means the beautiful strangers, female. So beautiful foreign women, beautiful foreign girls, however you would translate, gals, however you would translate that in English. So it's about the bullfight, but the focus is on the girls who are supporting the fight, the support for the matador.
Les belles étrangères qui vont au corrida et qui se palmedèsent devant la muleta. Les belles étrangères sur leur chapeau huppé ont la teint qui s'altère à l'heure de l'épée. Allons, laissez-moi rire. On chasse, on tue, on mange. On taille dans du cuir, les chaussures, on s'arrange. Et dans les abattoirs où l'on traîne des bœufs, la mort ne vaut guère mieux qu'aux arènes les soirs. Les belles étrangères, quand montent les clameurs, si je t'ai jamais...
I forgot the words. I'm going to start that one over again. Les belles étrangères qui vont quand montent les clameurs, se lèvent les premières en se tenant le cœur. Okay, I got it. Les belles étrangères.
Les belles étrangères qui vont au corrida et qui se palmedèsent devant la muleta. Les belles étrangères sur leur chapeau huppé ont la teint qui s'altère à l'heure de l'épée. Allons, laissez-moi rire. On chasse, on tue, on mange. On taille dans du cuir, les chaussures on s'arrange. Dans les abattoirs, l'on traîne des bœufs. La mort ne vaut guère mieux qu'aux arènes les soirs. Les belles étrangères, comme montent les clameurs, se lèvent les premières en se tenant le cœur. Les belles étrangères se jurent à jamais de chasser hors de nest dans leurs rêves secrets. Allons, laissez-moi rire quand le taureau s'avance. Ce n'est pas par plaisir que le torero danse. C'est que l'Espagne a trop d'enfants pour les nourrir. Il faut parfois choisir la faim ou le taureau. Les belles étrangères, végétariennes ou pas, quittent leur banc de pierre au milieu du compas, quittent leur banc de pierre au milieu du compas.
Thanks a lot, Rich Angell. And the Turian times make you want to start all over again. Thanks a lot for your patience. We were having some technical stuff going on in the set, but it's been fun. And we're here back with Debra to talk about birds. And the phone number here at MCAT, if you have any questions, is 542-6228. That's 542-MCAT. And you can ask Debra any question you'd like about anything we've talked about. And I wanted to ask Debra a couple bird questions from the set. And we have one person who has an affinity with hawks, and I was wondering if you could tell us about hawks.
Hawks generally symbolize choice and the ability to choose.
Okay.
And what they symbolize for us really depends on what you witness the hawk doing. So generally when we're most interested in hawks as totems, or we see a lot of hawks, what we're concentrating on is making decisions in our lives. And the hawk will tell us if it's time to make that decision. And you can see that if you are able to witness a hawk swoop and make a kill, then that's your message that yes, you need to make a move and seize that opportunity. If you watch the hawk circle and circle and circle and circle and never does come down to make a kill, then it's not time to do away with anything. It's not time to change anything. It's time to just wait and watch all your prospects and wait and see what's most beneficial.
So it's really key to the decision process in general.
Yes.
So it's interesting that the person who has that affinity is a Libra, because Libras often, that's one of their challenges.
Decisions.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And another person asked about bald eagles. I was wondering if you could tell me about those.
Well, no, bald eagle has really changed for us since, as Americans, we've chosen the bald eagle as our symbol. And I think most of us feel particular attraction to bald eagles in our hearts, even those of us that, sometimes like to complain about America. We all love the eagles. So the bald eagle generally represents truth, strength, the unification of spirit with the body because of the white head and then the black body. And that's like into other myths and concepts of birds and truth. So.
Dark and light and yin and yang and all of that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And we do have a call, and we'll take that right now. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Do you have a question for Debra?
Yes, I do. I grew up in the church for over 40 years and have a lot of fundamentalist relatives, and I keep hearing that star thing that you have down there is satanic. Can you tell me about that?
You personally believe the star to be satanic?
I'm just asking so that I know. I mean, I get different stories.
Well, what happened for us, unfortunately, in some sacred texts, particularly the Bible, is that actually even, the church, I'm assuming whatever you mean when you say the church is some form of American Christianity, which generally uses the Bible as its main text. And the Bible is primarily a Jewish text. And what is unknown to a lot of people is that the Hebrew tribes actually worshiped the goddess for a very long time. And they worshiped the goddess in many forms. And we can see this illustrated in the Old Testament again and again if we can look at these scriptures. For instance, we can look at the book of Isaiah, and I believe it's chapter 4, and the people come before the king, and there's a great drought and a great famine, and the king has asked that the people do away with their idols to the goddess, and do away with offering incense to the goddess, and offering their cakes to the goddess. And the people are in an uproar about it, and the women are in front of the king and the priests, and they're yelling at their rulers, telling them that the reason they're experiencing a drought is because they've ordered to stop worshiping the goddess. And Ashtoreth is actually an ancient Hebrew goddess. So this symbol, with the other symbol we see in the Bible a lot is like the golden calf. We hear about that one a lot, and a lot of modern American Christians also view that as a satanic symbol. But we can see that illustrated throughout the Bible a lot if we're careful enough to pay attention to detail, to witness the truth for ourselves. We can move beyond this modern conception, which has taken much of what is sacred to women and turned it into evil. So my answer would be no, the pentagram is not a symbol of Satan. And even if our viewers can't get over that concept, what we can help them to realize is that my belief is that even if we believe in Satan, he's still God's best friend, because it's through Satan that we are able to, through our free will, return back to God.
Ah, I see. So without the temptation and taking the true right path for yourself, you won't get back to God? Is that one way to put it?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying, is that the thing that makes us special about human beings, that angels don't have, that Satan doesn't have, and that honestly God doesn't have either, is that we have free will. Mm-hmm. And so we have the choice to be like God or to not be like God. And Satan, as an angel doing God's work, provides for us examples where we can choose to turn to God.
And I think we have another caller on the line, but I do want to get back to the pentagram. I want to ask you later, I guess your subconscious can work on this while we're talking to the caller, about what that actually means. So first we'll get to the caller. Oh. Let me see if I can get it here. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you notice that sometimes when you say hawk really fast, you say cock?
Thank you. Okay. This is the joy of live call-ins. Could I get you to talk then about the pentagram, please?
The pentagram is a 5-sided star.
Okay.
And so what we then get into is the numerology of stars. And the most common stars that we see are either 5 or 6-sided.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Generally, when people draw stars, they'll draw a 5-sided star or a 6-sided star. And a star which carries a different number of sides just carries basically the meaning of that number.
Okay.
The pentagram is the most powerful star for visualizing manifestation on the third plane, because 5 is the number of manifestation, And 5 really symbolizes that free will, which is where we learn that we do have the power to control our destiny and manifest whatever we choose. And the reason 5 is the number of free will is because it's halfway between the beginning and the end. It's the halfway point. So we can view that as half empty or half full.
Halfway between, how do you count that then, between the 0 and the 9?
Between the 0 and the 9.
Okay. And so I'm wondering how I manifested that last call, but excuse my manifestations. And
well, I'm wondering what his favorite bird is.
That wouldn't take too deep of a guess. Could I look at this? You brought another wood print. Could you explain this process a little bit on how you create the, and do you use this basically for your iconography?
For my iconographic art?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other nice thing about prints is that, like I said, this particular print is still available.
Okay.
And that's what's nice about prints, is that everyone, not everyone, but 200 people can have a copy of it. And it enables me to give people art at a much lesser expense.
Okay.
So what we do then, what I brought is 2 wood plates. One has already been printed, and the other one I'm working on right now.
Okay. Do you need help? I can hold this one.
Okay, why don't you hold this one?
Okay.
This is the one I'm working on right now.
Okay.
And so what I've done is I have transferred this design onto the wood.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going in with these knives and I'm cutting away. So it's a relief printing process. You can see that it's got a word. This is a lupin. And so it says lupin down the side.
Okay.
This is out of a series of herbs that I'm doing, and they all have their names on them. And you can see how I've written the word backwards because when it prints, it will be proper. And so everything that I don't cut away is what will print.
Okay.
And so you can see I'm about a third of the way done with the cutting process. And then, let's trade boards then.
All right.
Then we take that board after we've cut the design and ink it. So traditionally this is done with water-based ink, but I use a oil-based ink. That was the way I was taught.
Okay.
So I use what's called a brayer, which is like a paint roller, and ink this plate. And then I place a handmade paper over the plate and I burnish the ink into the paper.
And what does that mean?
That means it's just a technical word for transferring the ink off the plate onto the paper.
Is it a type of rubbing?
It's a type of rubbing.
Okay.
Yes, and it's quite a bit of work. It takes probably close to an hour to print each print.
Really? For each print? And then how long to carve this?
Depending on the size of this, to carve this particular block, probably took around 100 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very slow process.
And do you think your meditation, your yoga and all that give you the dedication and tenacity to create these things?
Definitely, it is, for me, it's the which came first. I think my dedication to art gave me the ability to go so far in the other healing arts.
And here, I'll put this down for a minute. And I wanted to ask you, I won't give away your age, but you're pretty young and you've mastered quite a bit of the healing arts in a very short time. And I imagine some of those were brought in from other lifetimes. But I wanted to ask what you're really up to now. What's your newest venture?
Well, a couple of things. I'm a really formulary. I've been teaching for quite a while in the community, basically at people's request. Okay. And so I'm coming out with some new goddess-oriented teaching programs.
Okay.
Where I'm going to be bringing in world-renowned teachers and uniting the healing arts under the guise of the Goddess Temple, which is really my work. So I'm very excited about that. So people can keep their eyes open, look for the flyers and pamphlets when we get that program ready.
Okay.
And I'm excited for Mountain Mother because Mountain Mother, so that I could stay real high quality, has functioned as a cottage industry for about 4 years. And Mountain Mother is really going through a process of expansion and going nationwide right now. So that's very exciting.
And I wanted to ask you about this. I happened to notice that this one has hemp oil, and I'm intending on having somebody to talk about hemp products, probably on the 28th, which is in a couple weeks. But I'm wondering, first of all, how do you get this stuff?
Well, you'll be very excited when we get this product line on the market. This is actually a prototype product.
Okay.
Some people in the community have seen and used it in the past when I've done small batches of it as a prototype. But this is for a new line of hemp-based body care products that will be distributed nationally. I'm very excited about it.
Okay. And also I meant, who produces hemp products? Are they produced in the U.S.? Have laws against it been
Well, it's a really gray
abolished?
area right now.
Okay. Because you're not going to get high off this, right?
No, you're definitely not going to get high off of it.
Okay.
Until last year, all of the hemp seed oil in the United States was imported from other countries, and it was all sterilized, meaning that it was heated to such high temperatures that there would be no possibility for any of the seed to germinate.
Oh, okay.
Even though it was a hemp and not a hemp version of cannabis that is grown primarily for fiber and seed production and not primarily for its psychoactive constituents. Now, in this last year, some of the laws have tightened up, or loosened up, but it's still a real gray area. I mean, anything I could say to you could be wrong because no matter who you talk to, you'll get a different answer every day of the week, kind of thing. But you can get real high quality, non-sterilized hemp seed oil, and there are people pressing it in Colorado and in California from imported seed. And Canada is not so close-minded as we are and is really picking up its hemp seed industry, and so we have a lot of hemp seed coming from Canada, but the government is still not real peaceful with that. So yeah, it's controversial, and I'm very proud to be involved in bringing the benefits of hemp back to our culture.
And I don't want to give away all the good information for the 28th, but I understand that the Constitution is written on hemp paper.
Yeah, the Constitution is written on hemp paper. In fact, America has quite a bit to do with cannabis, really. And people don't like to talk about that. They think, well, you're like, whoa, these people are really getting crazy now. You're really getting metaphysical. But our founding fathers had a great love and respect for cannabis, both as a psychoactive agent and as a fiber and foodstuff producing plant. In fact, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, they all had hemp plantations. And it's not necessarily that we got some special paper to write the Constitution on. It was that until the 1930s, all paper was made out of hemp in the United States because it just makes a lot of sense to make paper and fabric out of hemp. In fact, all the first American flags are made out of hemp also.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So we could wear it and balm ourselves with it and
Eat it. A lot of people come to me for really simple nutritional disorders. The common ones we see: joint pain, lack of luster in the skin, eczema, can't sleep at night, poor digestion. One of the most common things I recommend in my practice for people to improve their nutrition is the use of nutritional oils, just taking a couple tablespoons of a nutritional oil. My two favorites are cod liver oil and hemp seed oil. It's a highly nutritional oil. It's very good for us.
And as an herbalist, how do you feel that a plant has been outlawed?
Well, I kind of feel the same way Venus does about guilt. It just is a little silly to me. All plants are teachers to me. So I kind of don't worry about it just the same way, I laugh at it, the way Venus laughs at guilt and shame, because I just believe in the truth, and it's just such an obvious fallacy that eventually we'll get over it. And I think what's funny about the whole controversy is that really all of the people that seem to be enemies to this particular plant have actually elevated cannabis to, cult status. So, I mean, I don't remember at any point in history cannabis being anywhere near as popular as it is now.
So Venus is working on both sides of the equation to make it come back. That's hilarious.
So yeah, it's kind of funny, and I really don't view the government as my enemies. I'm an American, and I elected most of the government myself, and they're here to serve me, and that's generally all they do. And I think that when we can all come to that, back to that belief and take ownership in that, we'll see these little fallacies start to fall away much quicker.
And we only have a couple more minutes left. Is there anything you really wanted to share with the audience tonight before we go?
I can't think of anything. Did we miss anything?
Isis. Who's the other one? Hathor?
Isis and Hathor?
Hathor.
Yeah.
How do you get to know Hathor?
Well, you can get to know Hathor the same way you get to know Isis, and it's pretty hard to get to know Isis without getting to know Hathor. They're pretty much a team. In fact, they might be the same person. Mm-hmm. So they usually come together. I think if there's anything I'd really like to share with people today, it's that, like I mentioned about the color, there's no danger in using that favorite color meditation, because whatever we're most attracted to is what we need the most. And I'd just really like to reinforce that to everyone on all levels, that whatever they're seeing around them and whatever they feel attracted to is really the best thing they can do for themselves and consequently the rest of the planet. So whatever plants are growing in your yard, those are the ones you need the most, even if it's snapweed. Whatever's occurring in your house, whatever is occupying your thoughts, whatever won't leave you alone, I'd just really like to encourage people to embrace what's nearest to them.
For us, it would be dandelions. Dandelions everywhere.
Yeah.
My daughter gives me bouquets of them. It's really fun. That's a really sacred plant to me. I've always enjoyed dandelions.
Dandelions are great. They call dandelion poor man's ginseng.
Ah,
so it's kind of funny. Yeah, when I see people killing dandelions, to me it's like they're killing their own vitality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your power back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here,
Thank you,
Debra.
Heidi. Library. We would like to remind our audience that the views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect the views of the television station, the program director, producer, staff, host, or actors. So please, sit back, enjoy, and may wonder and truth fill your heart. Their figure and their arrangement produce effects so little alike. The blood bubbling in the body, when the other humors more thick dwell therein in calm. The spirits agitating the brain and leaving the feet without movement. Certain parts commence to play when the others unbind and relax themselves. The soul, even, is divided into two parts by your spiritual persons. The one inspires, the other consults. The one rules, the other should obey. These are two sisters, of which the relations and the different functions mark their diversity. And they are, if you wish, the husband and the wife, Adam and Eve, as explained by one of your doctors, who was not surprised to see the superior part of the soul was occupied from God in ecstasy, and that the inferior part dwelt in inaction, in respect of the body even, and that it forgot, in some sort, the obligation that it had to rule it and make it move. This diversity of operation and of object in being that you believe invisible Does it not authorize the variations of the actions of the soul in the body? That, I believe, derives from this same matter, with this difference, that the arrangement and the volume of parts which compose them are not the same. I add to this 2 remarks that you can observe daily, and which ought to strike you, even to convince you of the truth of that which I have said to you up to the present. The first is, that during sleep, the soul is infinitely more asleep than the body. For besides some exterior parts of the body that the heaviness of the soul and the lassitude holds immovable, because they ordinarily move but by its orders, without knowing how they are executed, all the others follow their duties, and fulfill them exactly and without interruption. The heart knows how to compress itself, the lungs inspire and expire, the chyle courses and takes its color, the blood circulates, the arteries beat, digestion is carried on, the flesh fattens, and all the members take their increase. It is not the same with the soul. It is as if it was annihilated. All the faculties are interdicted, all its modifications suspended. It knows nothing, it sees nothing, it feels nothing. If it reaches thought, when the shock of some atom of vapor obliges it to waken, then all its thoughts are of follies, of extravagances, or of the phantoms by which it affrights itself, and which cause a laugh to those who hear its dreams. If it were spiritual, as you pretend, ought not all its thoughts to be just, and all its judgments exact in its tranquil hours? The silence of the passions, the suite of objects, freedom from cares, and from the directions of the machine, restored to itself, putting it in full liberty, and leaving in it no distraction, can it not hear this eternal and interior truth, which you wish it to speak always, and to which this long interval of repose gives the leisure to listen to? Notwithstanding it is deaf and dumb and blind, it remains idle, and entire, in action. Draw the consequence and conviction with me, that it needs but a grain of opium to cause it to succumb to all the strength of the finest and the greatest soul in the universe. The second remark is that we see in the sot the sottishness in which the spirit often appears more drunk than the body. Their conception is entirely of the mouth, their reason wrecked, they do and say nothing but that which is extravagant. But when it is needful to quit the place of their debauch, when night is come, they regain their abode without staggering and without deceiving themselves, and having couched themselves as usual, and slept profoundly, they remember nothing in the morning of their revel, or of any of their words and their actions of the day before. Whence comes this disorderly spirit? Whence comes this overthrow of the reason? Whence comes it that the vapors of the wine overturns entirely the throne of intelligence, the magazine of the spirits, which serves to move the machine? You hesitate to answer me. I will do it for you. And I say that it is because that part of the soul, which we call animal, is composed of little bodies sufficiently thick, which resist by their solidity the impression of the vapors, and hold firm to their post, not to trouble the regularity of their functions in the next place, that these other little bodies, which form the most noble part of the soul, and upon which fall the rays of the sovereign reason, being more fine and delicate, are also less capable of sustaining the shock of these vapors, and in consequence more susceptible of derangement. It is in these principles that is found the denouncement of the case of the young page, who being born stupid and material, totally changed the character of his spirit in the heat of an ague fever, when all his words became so many sentences and oracles. The king, his master, was informed of this astonishing metamorphosis. He entered the chamber of the sick man, and having heard the most beautiful things in the world, and the greatest maxims of policy, he believed that it was all important to preserve so rare a genius. He ordered his doctors to employ all the secrets of their arts to cure him. They cured him in effect, but this poor youth, in recovering his health, fell back into his natural stupidity and into the contempt of his prince, the which made him regret his malady and curse those who delivered him. If this example still leaves you in some doubt, that which I am about to say to you will dissipate it entirely. Let us consider that the fire of the blood effects upon the soul that which fire does upon the eyes, and that their impressions are altogether similar. With too little light, we only see objects confusedly. With sufficient light, we see very distinctly, and with too much light, one is dazzled. We see not with taste. With too little of fire in the blood, we have sight and understanding confused and bounded. With a regulated fire, one sees justly, finely, and clearly. With excessive fire, one has sight strange and lost. And why? Because the activity of this fire was too feeble in the first to put in a just movement those subtle parts of which the soul is formed, and it cannot give but to the spirits in common. This same activity, being assisted in point of proportion and of perfection, to which nothing is lacking, its notions is full of justness, and it necessarily produces good spirits. In fine, this activity being beyond due measure in the last, it agitates and dissipates entirely those little subtle bodies which the superior illuminations always strike falsely, and cannot introduce reason there. And in this fashion there remains only follies and extravagances. Let us examine, I pray you, these 3 degrees of fire. Follow their action, and you will find they're not only the veritable cause of the differences of the spirits and of their changes in character, but further, that all the effects which are born of them are produced by the same laws of nature, and by the same mechanism as those of light. They desire to attribute another principle, and I flatter myself that I know it. This is to make an idea of fantasy, and imitate Pherecydes, who is believed to have only invented the opinion of the immortality of the soul to satisfy his own ambition. All this reasoning, my prince, said I to him, only resembles whipped cream, and gives not the least attaint to the ideas which I have given of the excellency and the dignity of my soul. I distinguish very clearly between its nature and that of my body, and I know perfectly well the being which thinks and excludes the idea of the material being. I can also mark to you clearly and distinctly the operations which belong to them. It is but necessary to corporate and mix that which you separate and confound, since that you have directed me to the chemists. Do me the kindness to show me by what singular art and by what chemical virtue the soul which was spiritual and immortal in Adam, as you hold, has become corporeal and perishable in himself and in all his descendants. It is easy to show you that, he said. The primitive crime has effected this prodigy. It has incorporated spirit and caused it to become flesh. In the same manner as virtue spiritualizes the body and lends its quality, the soul has God for principle, and nothing originates it.